a House Life Skills series where we're talking about food substitutions today. Have you ever experienced it when you're getting ready to make a muffin recipe and you're looking at the recipe, you're super excited, you're craving these muffins, and it has buttermilk. You're like, I don't have buttermilk. So then you run out to the store, and while you're at the store, you buy 5 other things, and then you get back home. By the time you're back home, you're tired, you don't actually want to make the muffins. Then the buttermilk sits in your refrigerator until it's bad. You've wasted time, you've wasted money. This used to happen to me a lot, especially with eggs. For some reason, I never bought enough eggs. And I wanted cookies and I needed eggs. I had no eggs. What was I going to do? Well, this is when I started accumulating quite a few recipes for substitutions for ingredients that I frequently use in the kitchen. And this is great because this is a skill set of knowing how to buy things that are going to have multiple uses. When you have things in your home that have multiple uses, it's going to save you a lot of money, and it's going to save you time for having to go out and buying one-time use ingredients. So the best thing to do for substitutions that I found is Google. Google is your friend. You're looking at a recipe and you see, I need X ingredient, but I don't have that. Click into Google, type in substitution for X, substitution for egg, substitution for whatever. And it's going to come up with a lot of different recipes for what you can actually use as a substitution. But I'm here today to save you a little time, as well as to save you some pain of having substitutions that don't work. And I'm going to share with you today some substitutions, 7 of them to be exact, of what you can use on ingredients you already probably have in your kitchen. And these have all worked great for me. The first one is for buttermilk. Again, this has happened to me so many times. I actually now never buy buttermilk because now I know I can make it. So if the recipe calls for a cup of buttermilk, what you do is you get your milk and you pour in almost a cup of the milk into your container. Put it down about 1/4 of an inch below the cup line. Then you fill up with the rest of the liquid with my favorite ingredient, vinegar. Now what's going to happen is there's going to actually be a chemical reaction, which is super fun. And it's actually going to curdle the milk. So the vinegar is actually going to curdle the milk. I know that sounds really disgusting, but that's basically what buttermilk is. It's just making the milk much more thicker and fuller in flavor, which adds so much depth of flavor to your baked goods. So again, you fill up to about 1/4 of an inch down from the line of which you need to measure out. So a cup or 1/2 cup, 1/4 inch down. Fill up the rest of the liquid with the vinegar, and you have a substitution for buttermilk. The next one also utilizes vinegar, and this is an egg substitution. So if you find you need an egg, or you don't have enough eggs, let's say your recipe calls for 3 eggs and you only have 1, or you have 2 eggs and you need 1 extra egg. So you get a tablespoon of the vinegar, add into that 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and this is baking soda. So what this is going to do is, again, a chemical reaction. The combination of the vinegar and the baking soda is going to provide the moisture and the lift to your baked good. Now, this recipe is, again, for any baked good. Obviously, if you're making an omelet, you need eggs, real eggs, not the vinegar and baking soda egg. But in a muffin recipe or a cookie or cake recipe, this is a great substitution. Another substitution for eggs is applesauce. I know that sounds kind of weird, but this actually provides enough moisture to a baked good. Now, this will not provide lift like the baking soda and vinegar option, so this is great for cookies or brownies or something a little denser. All you need to do is get a 1/4 cup, fill that up with the applesauce, and that equals an egg. So 1/4 cup applesauce equals 1 egg. The next one is butter and oil. Have you ever experienced not having butter on hand? It's a really sad day. Now this again is a substitution only used for baking. This is not going to be used for cooking. Let's say you're trying to stir fry something, you need your oil or your butter. I suggest oil because it's a little healthier. But what you can do is, again, substitute the applesauce for the butter. So if you need 1/2 cup of butter, you use 1/2 cup of applesauce, or a cup of butter, a cup of applesauce. Now this applesauce, again, the same as with an egg, you don't want this to be added sugar applesauce. It should be fully natural applesauce. And this is actually homemade applesauce. If you're interested in learning how to actually make this, I can teach you how. Just let me know if you'd like to learn that. So for butter and oil, equal amounts of applesauce. The next tip I have for you, and this was the fourth tip of the day, is substitutions for sour cream. Now sour cream, I don't really have any problem with sour cream, but a lot of times I just don't have sour cream on hand. But a great substitution is yogurt, and this is again a 1-to-1 exchange. If you need a cup of sour cream, you can use a cup of yogurt. So if you're making, let's say, a crock pot recipe and it needs some creaminess to it and it calls for sour cream, you can use the Greek yogurt or any kind of yogurt, just unflavored, in that recipe. The other thing that yogurt can be used for is mayonnaise. So if you're making like a chicken salad or a tuna salad and it calls for mayonnaise, you can use the yogurt in its place. Now, not only is this great because you're only buying one ingredient instead of 3, but it's also a little bit healthier because Greek yogurt actually has a lot, or any yogurt, has a lot less fats in it, and it has a lot more protein, so it's healthier for you. So again, Greek yogurt is a great exchange for any creaminess that you're going to need in recipes. The next tip is on cheeses. A lot of times I've seen a recipe and it calls for shredded cheddar, and all I have is mozzarella, or I have a combination of cheddar and mozzarella to equal the amount of cheese that I need in a recipe. You can do those exchanges, but you don't necessarily always need the exact same cheese that the recipe is called for. And this takes a little bit of trial and error, but I have found that most of the time in recipes, if it calls for a cheese, you can make some substitutions for another kind of cheese. The next is herbs. If you're just starting out and you are trying to build up your kitchen and you see a recipe and it calls for sage and it calls for marjoram and it calls for thyme and basil and oregano, and you're like, that's a lot of herbs, and you go to the grocery store and you see they're $5 each, and you're like, that's really expensive. What I would suggest you do is just buy yourself a bottle of Italian seasoning. Italian seasoning is a great substitution for a lot of spices. So the ones that I just mentioned, or herbs, sorry. The ones I just mentioned, the oregano, the sage, the basil, all those can be substituted with Italian seasoning. The last one I have for you is cream of chicken soups or cream of mushroom soups. Those, one, they're not very healthy. And 2, I never had them on hand. But then I found a recipe, which I'm actually going to just provide to you in the description box below, on how to actually make your own cream of soup mix. And that comes in handy so many times. It not only is healthier, but it's also something that you can just keep in your cupboards and it will stay for a really long time. So what I'm going to do for you today is actually provide all of these descriptions in the description box below, or all these ingredients, so you don't have to memorize me and figure out what I'm actually saying. But I'll provide to you all of the 1-to-1 comparisons and all of the measurements that you're going to need. So again, substitutions are great in your kitchen. Not only is it going to save you from having to buy 3 ingredients down to 1, but it will also provide you just a wealth of ability to actually make all sorts of different foods in your kitchen without having to buy specific ingredients for a specific recipe. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you money. And if you've ever tried a substitution and it hasn't worked, I'd love to know. Not only will it help me learn, but I'd love to hear the story. Also, if you have a substitution that you use, I'd love to learn it. I love learning new things, especially in the kitchen, and I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for joining us here at Fill to House on the Life Skills series, and come back and join us and join in on the conversation on how we can be better, mindful people when we're dealing with our food. See you later.